So welcome students, we will continue with our lesson, chapter on transportation. So in the last class you learned about the cardiac cycle, we talked about the heart, we talked about the blood vessels. Okay, so now today in detail we are going to study about this lymphatic system. Okay, so lymphatic system, if you come to page number 59, we are talking about a situation which everyone, especially in elders, see transportation, when we talk about, we are talking about circulation or circulatory system. Okay, when I say circulatory system, we already told it consists of heart, okay, blood and blood vessels. We talked mainly about this blood vessels. Vessels, when I told it may be arteries, veins, or it may be blood capillaries. Now when we are telling circulatory system, there is one more system where there is transportation of not blood but the another fluid named lymph. So we are talking about the lymphatic system. So what is this lymphatic system? Lymphatic system, if you have any elders or some grandparents after some long journey, okay, after some long journey, when they come back, when they are sitting in the same position, when they come down of a bus, you can see them telling that my legs are swollen, okay, my legs are swollen, or I have pain in my leg after a long travel. Okay, so these legs swell. So this swelling of leg, or when the legs are swollen, okay, especially the lower part of the leg, when it gets swollen, this condition is called as edema. Edema. So the swelling of the lower parts of legs. Okay, now this is a condition which is commonly seen in elders. Now those who are young and all, I think they don't get any swelling, but you have seen your mother talking, or your grandmother or grandfather, somebody telling that my legs are swollen. So this swelling of the legs is because of the accumulation of one fluid that is called as lymph. Now this lymph is not, it's also a fluid, but it is not blood. Okay, so now this lymph, what happens when this lymph gets collected? That is all told in this page number 60. So when you come to this page number 60, you can see the definition of lymph. Now what is this lymph? Now we are telling lymph. So what is this lymph? Actually this lymph is a small connection. It's a link between blood. See, it's a link between blood and tissue. Okay, so now blood is, red in color. But there is another one fluid which is just present in as a link, which is acting like a link between this blood and tissue. Blood carries nutrients, blood carries oxygen, blood carries carbon dioxide. It is supplying to the tissue. So when it is supplying to the tissue, there is a mediator, a link. That link is called as this lymph. So now what can you say about lymph? Lymph is a link. It's a link between blood and tissue. So you should be able to tell that on page 16. You can see that definition of lymph, third paragraph. Okay, so what is this lymph? See, lymph is a liquid or a fluid which forms a link between blood and tissues. And why this link is needed? Why this link is needed? Because the tissue needs some essential substances. Okay, essential substances are needed. And what is happening to the waste material? That needs to be transported back. So essential substances transported inside the tissue, waste material carried away from the tissue by this fluid, that is lymph. And that system, how we are telling blood now in circulatory system. Oh, okay. So blood is, we are talking about circulatory system. Like that we have, when this lymph is there, this lymph is supplied by some vessels, and that vessel system is called as the lymphatic system. Okay, so lymph is something that it's a fluid part. It's a fluid. You can underline that third paragraph. Lymph is a vital link between blood and tissues by which essential substances pass from blood to cells or blood to tissue, and excretory products, that means waste products, So this lymph is, in which system this lymph is flowing? It is in the lymphatic system. Now we will go to the next part, that is page number 61. It is talking about blood pressure. Okay, now we will see what is this blood pressure. You have always seen some of your parents or maybe elderly uncles and aunts, or some of them are suffering from this problem of blood pressure. Okay, now we will see what is this blood pressure or how this blood pressure is caused. So what is this blood pressure? Actually, you know, our blood is flowing in a vessel. Okay, that vessel is called as blood vessel. Okay, this is our blood vessel. And when blood is flowing through this blood vessel, it is called as the closed circulation. Closed circulation. Why it is closed circulation? Because there is presence of this blood vessel. And when this blood vessel is present, you have in this blood vessel what is present is our blood. And when this blood is flowing in the blood vessel, this blood is exerting some pressure. Okay, so this blood is exerting some pressure on the walls. Okay, some pressure is exerted on the walls, and that pressure is called as blood pressure. So page number 62, you can see the definition of blood pressure. First two lines, I will read it to you. Blood pressure is the pressure exerted by blood on the walls of the blood vessel. So understood what is the definition? Blood pressure means the pressure exerted by blood on the walls, okay, of blood vessel. So now why this blood pressure is developed? Normally if the blood is flowing, there will be no blood pressure. Normal pipe, you have seen a pipe, no, in which water is flowing, there will be no much pressure. But if you have seen the motor, you know, pump. So when you have the pump, nearby that pump, you can see this pipe, you know. So this pipe here, there will be so much of pressure. Okay, the water pressure will be very high there. So when you put a pipe, you try to put a pipe on that, it's very difficult to put the pipe because it is in very high force or high pressure. Okay, so same way in our body we have our heart. This heart is pumping the blood. So when it is pumping the blood, you have seen different types of blood vessels, arteries and veins. You talked about arteries which carry blood from heart to body parts, and what are these veins? Veins carry from body parts to heart. So when you talk about this blood pressure, this contraction of ventricles, you know our heart, okay, heart, this is our atria, this is our ventricles, okay. So what is happening is, we talked about this in cardiac cycle, when the atria contracts, blood is entering ventricles, and when this ventricles contract, blood will enter into our arteries, respective arteries, and when this contraction is there, there is so much of blood oozing, it's coming in a very high pressure. So that pressure is exerted on these walls. Which walls? On the walls of the blood vessel. And this pressure is called as blood pressure. So when you go to hospital, normally elderly people, they check their blood pressure or BP. So what is that instrument? The instrument, like you know, for temperature we use thermometer, isn't it? Right? Thermometer is used to check the temperature. Like that, for using the instrument used to measure blood pressure, we are calling it as sphygmomanometer. It's there on page number 62. First paragraph, second two lines, last two lines. So this is called as sphygmomanometer. Sphygmomanometer. So this sphygmomanometer is nothing but it's the instrument used to measure blood pressure. If you look at this figure 13, you can see this instrument. I think nowadays we have digital BP measuring instruments, isn't it? We have a small BP measuring instrument, we have glucometer to measure the glucose level. But normal method measure the blood pressure. Okay, so when blood pressure is measured, whenever blood pressure is measured, like you say, no, temperature. If you have high temperature, 108 degrees Celsius, did you say temperature in that unit? When you talk about you are traveling from one place to another place, you talk it's 5 kilometers, it's 3 kilometers away. That means you are using some unit. So like that, same way blood pressure also is having readings. There are some readings which the doctor is measuring, so that to identify whether you are suffering from high BP, low BP. So that is, there are two readings in blood pressure. Blood pressure has two readings. Okay, now what is that two readings? We are calling it as, it will be upper one is called as systolic pressure. Okay, systolic pressure, and the lower reading, that means by diastolic pressure. Systolic pressure and diastolic pressure. Now what is the systolic and diastolic pressure? I tell you. Okay. Now if you look, you should have a look at the page number 62. So when you look at page number 62, you can see that there are two readings. So normal blood pressure. What is our normal blood pressure? 120 by 80. So this is measured by sphygmomanometer, and whatever instrument is used, that is called as sphygmomanometer, and he is pressing, the doctor is pressing it, and there is a movement. When we see that reading will move, there will be movement. That movement is because of the movement of mercury. Okay, Hg is mercury. So what is the normal blood pressure? 120 by 80, and 120 stands for systolic pressure, and 80 stands for diastolic pressure. Diastolic and systolic, I will explain to you what it is. Okay, so systolic pressure 120, diastolic pressure 80. This is the normal BP. Suppose if it becomes 180 something on the top, that means you are having high BP. Suppose if it is coming down to 60, that means you are having low BP. Understood? So this measurement or this reading is telling you whether you are having high BP or low BP. Now, what is the meaning of this systolic pressure? Now, systolic pressure means when this is the pressure which is exerted due to contraction. Remember, contraction of what? Contraction of our ventricles. Okay, contraction of ventricles. And what is this diastolic? Diastolic means when there is relaxation. Okay, we have already explained to you with cardiac cycle. So this is the heart. This is in relaxed state. If it is contracting, the pressure is more. So it is systolic pressure. And when it comes back to relaxed state, it is diastolic pressure. Okay, diastolic means relaxation. So when there is systolic pressure, there is contraction. When there is diastolic, it is relaxation. So now this BP is not constant. BP will change. Suppose you are going to a hospital to have your BP checkup, not you, your parents or your grandparents. So what does the doctor first say? Immediately he will not check your BP. First step, he will tell you to take rest. Okay, few minutes he will chit chat with you, or he will talk about your health condition, and then you will be advised to take your BP. Because your BP should get stable. Sometimes you climb the stairs and if you measure your BP will be very high. Suppose you run and come to the class and check your BP, it will be high. So BP is always referred when you are at a normal state. So BP will change according to your walking, your running, if you do some vigorous exercise. So resting period. Resting period is when you are in a stable normal state. If you have high blood pressure, means if your BP is increasing, it is called as hypertension. Hypertension means when you have high BP. So normally when do you get high BP? If you take, there is intake of high salt. When you take salt intake more. If you are more angry, followed. If you are an angry young man or an angry young woman, you are going to get this BP. That is high blood pressure. If you are having lot of stress, you are having lot of strain, at that time also your BP may increase or sometimes it may even decrease. For high BP control, first step is low intake of salt. Salt intake should be normal. Don't go too low, don't go too high. So if your normal intake of salt is there, you are not going to get this hypertension. What is this hypertension? Hypertension means high blood pressure. So next to that, just below that 62 page, we are talking about coagulation of blood. Okay, so what is this coagulation of blood? We will learn in the next class. So today's class we learned about the circulatory system, especially lymphatic system. What is lymph? Why there is swelling of blood? Due to accumulation of lymph in elders, limbs. Then we talked about the hypertension or high blood pressure. High blood pressure, the instrument used is sphygmomanometer, normal BP 120 by 80, 120 stands for systolic pressure, 80 stands for diastolic pressure. Systolic means remember contraction, diastolic means remember it is relaxation. Okay, so now so high BP, hypertension. If you want to be aware, not you, especially your elders, we have to advise them to reduce the intake of salt and keep your anger in control. Okay, thank you.